For our last informative video about reference sources, we're going to be talking about government documents. A government document is a publication of the United States federal government, which could include transcripts of hearings, the text of bills, resolutions, statutes, reports, charters, treaties, periodicals, statistics, etc. In some libraries, federal documents are shelved in a separate section by SUDOC number. And we will talk about that in just a minute. The Government Printing Office, or the GPO, is the government agency responsible for collecting, publishing, and distributing federal government information. So the GPO is the publisher of almost all government documents. There are some companies that are not affiliated with the government that do repackage government information and republish it, usually in some more user-friendly format. A SUDOC number is the Superintendent of Documents Classification System. So the number identifies the name of the agency, the sub-agency, the publication type, and is given a cutter number that represents the title. So these look different than Dewey Decimal numbers or Library of Congress numbers, but it's good to be familiar with them, at least by sight, so you know what they look like. And if you need more information, there is a detailed example in the book. So the Government Printing Office actually has a very long and storied history. Last year was its 150th anniversary. And James Madison said this before the Government Printing Office was established, but I think it's still applicable today. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. So, government printing, however, has been around as early as the colonial era, even though the Government Printing Office wasn't established until 1861. The government would contract its printing out to newspapers. They did find that this was excessively costly, inconsistent, and unreliable. As early as 1801, legislators were asked to create a national printing office, but it wasn't until 1861 that the GPO was formed. Cornelius Wendell's printing establishment was purchased. He had done a great deal of printing work for both chambers of Congress. And Don Doherty DeFries was named the head of the GPO in 1861. The Printing Act of 1895 brought nearly all of the government's printing under the control of the GPO. It also created a standardized system for printing and created the position of the superintendent of documents as the head of the GPO. So that there was a superintendent of documents before, but that person didn't work in association with the GPO, and the Printing Act moved that position over to become the head of the GPO. And this centralized the creation, the cataloging, and the distribution of government documents to depository libraries. So Francis Asbury Crandall was the first superintendent of documents to work with the GPO. And the GPO has a fabulous biography, I guess, of itself, a history that they've published called Keeping America Informed. It's very detailed. It's, I think, about 45 pages, but it's an interesting read. Lots of really cool pictures in it. Worth a look, anyway. So government documents come in many different formats. They feature a plethora of different topics. So they fill many different information needs, and they can be used in a multitude of ways. So just think of all the ways that we use all of our other reference sources. You can use government information in that way. Depository libraries were established by the Printing Act of 1895, and government documents are sent to depository libraries at no charge. And this was a way in order to keep the citizenry informed and to provide a way to distribute the publications to all parts of the country. So in order to maintain depository status, depository libraries need to retain and provide free access to all government documents to the public. That's part of their contractual obligation. Regional depository libraries receive all of the items distributed to the depository system, but selective depository libraries receive the materials that meet their patrons' needs, so they can pick and choose the documents that they receive. Regional depository libraries in North Dakota include University of North Dakota's Chesterfield's Library and the North Dakota State University's library system. Selective depository libraries in North Dakota include the North Dakota Supreme Court Law Library, the State Historical Society of North Dakota, the North Dakota State Library, Valley City State University's Allen Memorial Library, and Minot State University's Gordon B. Olson Library. For more information about other depository libraries, you can go to the Federal Depository Library Directory. They have a clickable map. You can click on any state that you want, and it will tell you where the depository libraries are in that state. So many government documents are available at no charge online. So just last year, the GPO premiered FDSYS, FDSYS, which is a new digital system for online government information. So previously, online government documents were found at GPO Access. So there you can see there's a link to FDSYS on the slide. So we're going to just take a look at some of the print government documents that we have available in the Burns-Qualbeck Library. I will go through some of just kind of how to find your way around FDSYS in a screencast that is also posted for this week. So the first document that we're going to look at is the Statistical Abstract of the United States. And this is one of the most well-known government documents, along with the U.S. Government Manual, which we looked at when we looked at almanacs, yearbooks, and manuals. So the Statistical Abstract is published by the Census Bureau, and it compiles the most popular statistical data, not only from all federal agencies, but also from some non-governmental publishers as well. The Statistical Abstract contains information about birth and birth rates, high school dropouts, arrests for drug crimes, attendance of the performing arts, visitation of national parks, voting patterns, unemployment. The list goes on and on. Sadly, the Census Bureau has announced that 2012 will be the last edition of the Statistical Abstract published. So this is a huge blow to government statistics. But keep this in mind. It is a good historical reference as well if you have access to back issues. The Congressional Directory is a directory published for the use of Congress as well as about Congress. So it contains brief biographies and the committee appointments of senators and representatives and directory information for them. So the directory contains maps of the congressional districts, and it even contains maps of the Capitol. You can see here that this is an old edition. This is a 2010-2011 edition, as we see Byron Dorgan is still listed as a senator. Historical Statistics of the United States compiles popular statistical data from the earliest time it was available up until the edition that we have, 1970. So sometimes it dates back even to colonial times. It does include source notes, so if a user is interested in where the statistical data came from, that can be located. But it doesn't, the historical statistics does not cover the broad scope that the Statistical Abstract does, since statistics weren't always as widely collected as they are today. The County and City Data Book is compiled by the Census Bureau, just like the Statistical Abstract. And its statistics are about counties and cities and deal with housing, population, retail trade, crime, agriculture, education, and employment. Generally, there's more statistical information for counties than cities. The latest edition that we have in the library is from 1994, but there is an electronic edition of the 2007 edition available freely online. And the last principal resource that I want to highlight is the Occupational Outlook Quarterly. It is a periodical. It is published by the government, and it contains information about different occupations. You can see this issue has information about wind energy careers, housework careers, and recycling coordinators. So its companion publication is the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is released annually, and that's available from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in its entirety online. And the Occupational Outlook Handbook lists the training and education needed for each occupation, the earnings, expected job prospects, what workers do on the job, and the working conditions that one can expect. So that's just a very small sampling of the government resources that are available. We will look at some more when we pop onto the screencast.